I found this device in the garage of a house I'm renting. It has two cylindrical components with decorative coverings, a metal frame, and several adjustment screws. Does anyone know what this is? What you've found is a coil tattoo machine, a classic type of electric tattooing device that uses electromagnetic coils to drive a group of fine needles up and down at high speed. As the needles puncture the skin, they deposit ink to create a permanent design. This mechanism replaced older hand-poking methods and allowed tattoo artists to work much faster and more consistently, making electric tattooing the standard throughout the 20th century. The first electric tattoo machine was patented in 1891 by New York artist Samuel O'Reilly, who adapted Thomas Edison's electric pen for tattooing. Just weeks later, Londoner Thomas Riley introduced the first coil-based design, and in 1899, Alfred Charles South patented the twin coil configuration that became the foundation of most machines still in use today. My mom bought this item at Goodwill for $6.99 for my 16-year-old son. She thinks it might be a weapon. It's about 16 inches long, made of wood and metal, with a decorative handle and an ornate metal piece at the top, along with a pointed spiral spike. Does anyone know what it is? What you've found is an elephant goad, also known as an ankus, a traditional tool used for guiding and controlling elephants. It features a sturdy wooden handle with a sharp metal spike and a curved hook at one end. Mahouts, or elephant handlers, use the spike to apply pressure to sensitive areas on the elephant's body and the hook to pull or steer, allowing them to direct the animal's movements with precision. The ankus has been in use for over 2,000 years, originating in India and spreading throughout South and Southeast Asia, wherever elephants were domesticated for work, ceremonies, or warfare. Ornate versions, often inlaid with silver, gold, or precious stones, served as symbols of authority in royal courts, while simpler ones were used in logging, transportation, and ceremonial processions. Today, the tool is controversial due to concerns over animal welfare, and its use has been banned or restricted in many places. I found this small handheld tool with a white handle and a spiked metal wheel at the end. The spikes are sharp, but not sharp enough to pierce the skin. What is this tool, and what is it used for? What you've found is called a Wartenberg wheel, a small handheld medical instrument originally designed for neurological examinations. It consists of a slender handle with a rotating wheel at one end, lined with evenly spaced, sharp metal pins. When rolled lightly over the skin, these spikes create a tingling or prickling sensation that stimulates nerve endings without breaking the skin. Doctors use this tool to test nerve sensitivity and reaction, helping to detect possible nerve damage or loss of sensation. Named after neurologist Dr. Robert Wartenberg, who popularized it in the United States in the 1930s, the device had already existed earlier in Europe, likely inspired by Taylor's tracing wheels. During World War II, it became a standard tool for assessing nerve injuries in soldiers. I found this small plastic device among my grandma's things. It has a hollow cylindrical mouthpiece and a cover, and when you press it, metal spikes pierce a capsule-like compartment inside. It's about 3 inches long and has no markings. Does anyone know what it was used for? What you've found is a capsule-based dry powder inhaler, a medical device used to deliver powdered medication directly into the lungs. This type of inhaler was commonly prescribed to people with asthma or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, especially from the 1970s through the early 2000s. To use it, you'd place a small capsule filled with powdered medicine into the chamber. Pressing the buttons on the side activates a set of metal spikes that puncture the capsule. When the patient inhales through the mouthpiece, their breath causes the capsule to spin, releasing the powder into the airflow, so it can be carried deep into the lungs. The idea of inhaling powdered medication goes back to the 19th century. In fact, one of the earliest known patents for a powder inhaler was issued in England in 1864. But it wasn't until the late 1960s that this technology became truly practical for patients. That's when the British pharmaceutical company Fissons introduced the Spinhaler, the first widely adopted capsule-based inhaler. It was designed to deliver cromolyn sodium, a preventive treatment for asthma, and quickly became a staple of respiratory care throughout the 1970s and beyond. What is this old lighter I found while cleaning out my boss's truck? He's 76 and spent most of his life in the military, so I'm guessing it might be some kind of service-issued item. It has no markings. Does anyone recognize it? What you found is a United States Air Force survival butane lighter, likely issued during the Vietnam War era. It was part of the survival vest kit carried by American pilots and aircrew from the late 1960s through the 1970s. Unlike common liquid-fueled lighters, this one used pressurized butane and was specifically engineered to be wine-resistant, waterproof, and leak-proof. To operate it, the user would unscrew the cap, twist the top ring to release gas, then spin the striker wheel to ignite a small, steady flame. The lighter was manufactured under contract by K-Wit Tools, based on patented designs from 1979. Earlier versions, including some made by Gene Goebel and Associates, were used by special forces and appeared in individual survival kits. Though highly functional, these lighters were expensive and eventually phased out by the mid-1980s, replaced by cheaper disposable options. Because they were only issued to specific personnel and often kept as personal mementos, surviving examples are rare today. I found this strange metal object while helping my grandfather clean out his attic. It's made of iron, hollow on the inside, and has the number 277 stamped on it. There's a small hole near the base and a curved hook-like arm near the top. The whole piece stands about 8 inches tall. Does anyone know what it was used for? What you found is the head of an old boat hook, a tool that sailors have relied on for centuries. This particular piece would have originally been mounted on the end of a long wooden pole. The curved hook on the side was designed for grabbing ropes, cleats, or mooring rings, while the rounded knob on top helped push off from docks or other boats. A small hole near the base allowed it to be securely fastened to the pole with a screw or rivet. Boat hooks like this were essential gear on nearly every type of vessel, from fishing boats and ferries to yachts and steamships. This design hasn't changed much over time. In fact, tools with this same shape appear in paintings from the 17th century, and archaeologists have uncovered iron boat hooks dating all the way back to the Roman Empire. My brother found this device while working on a boat here in the United Kingdom. It looks like it could be some kind of barometer, but we're not entirely sure. Does anyone know exactly what it is and what it's used for? What you have here is a barograph, also known as a recording barometer, a precision instrument designed to continuously measure and record atmospheric pressure over time. Instead of displaying pressure on a dial like a regular barometer, a barograph uses a series of aneroid capsules connected to a system of levers that move a pen. This pen traces a continuous line on a rotating drum wrapped with a paper chart called a barogram. As the drum turns, driven by a clock mechanism, the pen's up and down movement creates a week-long record of rising and falling pressure, providing a clear visual history of weather changes. The first practical device of this kind was developed in the 1840s by French physicist Lucien Vitti, who replaced mercury columns with evacuated metal cells and devised a way to automatically record their movements. His design was later refined by other makers, such as the Paris firm Richard Frere, whose stacked aneroid capsule system greatly increased sensitivity. By the late 19th century, barographs had become standard equipment in weather observatories, on ships, and in coastal stations. At sea, a sudden downward curve on the chart was often the earliest warning of an approaching gale, and many ship captains relied on them as much as they did on the compass. I found this unusual kitchen tool in an old drawer. It's about the size of a spatula and has 2 identical round metal cups held together at the end of what looks like 2 bent rods with separate wooden handles. Any idea what it was used for? This kitchen tool is a vintage handheld sandwich toaster, specifically a mid-century device known as a toast tight. It was designed to make sealed, toasted sandwiches by clamping 2 slices of bread around a filling and heating them over a stove or campfire. The toast tight was invented in the mid-1940s by John Striedelmeyer of Cincinnati, Ohio, and officially patented in 1949. It quickly became a popular gadget in American kitchens and campsites, appreciated for its simplicity, speed, and versatility. By the early 1950s, the device had even been adopted by the Boy Scouts of America, who released a special edition featuring their emblem and motto. However, production of the original model ended in 1953, making surviving examples prized collectibles today. My friend found this rusted metal object buried in their backyard while planting flower bulbs. It's long, looks like an old rifle, and has numbers etched into the metal for yardage adjustment. Some neighbors think it might be connected to the nearby historic Fort Vancouver. What your friend found is the remains of a Swiss Schmidt-Rubin K11 rifle, a straight-pull bolt-action carbine that was issued to Swiss soldiers in the early 20th century. The K11 was introduced around 1913 and became known for its unusual action, which allowed the shooter to cycle the bolt by pulling it straight back and pushing it forward much faster than a traditional turnbolt design. Although Switzerland remained neutral during both world wars, these rifles were widely issued to its citizen soldiers and played a central role in the country's policy of armed deterrence. After the 1950s, many K11s were sold off as military surplus and made their way to the United States, where they were picked up by collectors, hunters, and firearms enthusiasts. I found these metal tools that look a bit like arrowheads. Each one has a groove along the stem that stops right at the base of the blade, and all of them are stamped with the words Bar Brothers. Does anyone know what these are and what they're used for? What you've found is a Bar Brothers spring-eye burlap sack needle, a heavy-duty hand-sewing tool that was once essential for closing coarse fabric bags, such as burlap or gunny sacks, filled with grain, seed, flour, or other goods. These long steel needles feature a distinctive slit or spring eye near the point. Instead of threading twine through a small hole, the user could simply press the cord sideways into the slot, where it would snap into the eye and stay secure during stitching. The broad, flat blade just below the eye pierced the dense weave of burlap, and one sharpened edge could even cut the twine when the job was finished. The Bar Brothers Company began producing these needles in Eugene, Oregon in the 1890s, at a time when sacks were rapidly replacing barrels and boxes for agricultural shipping. By the early 1900s, their needles were widely used across the grain-growing regions of the West, sold through farm supply stores, and listed in catalogs alongside twine and empty sacks. In 1912, Bar Brothers relocated to Oakland, California, and continued production until bag closing machines gradually replaced hand sewing in the mid-20th century. While hiking near Boulder City, Nevada, I came across this tall, rusted metal post. It has a pipe-like opening on one side and a small hinged door. Does anyone know what this is and what it was used for? What you've found is called an Iron Ranger, a secure, unattended fee collection box that was once common in United States parks, trailheads, and campgrounds. Built from heavy-gauge steel, these rugged posts served as self-service stations where visitors could pay entrance, parking, or camping fees when no ranger was on duty. You'd fill out a provided envelope, insert your payment, and drop it through the slot, where it would fall into a locked chamber accessible only to park staff. Iron Rangers began appearing in the mid-20th century as outdoor recreation expanded, and agencies needed a low-cost, reliable way to collect fees in remote areas. I found these odd metal loops set into the concrete foundation along the side of my garage, which was built in 1955. They're evenly spaced and stick out a few inches from the foundation. Does anyone know what they were used for? This is the remains of concrete form ties, specifically an older loop-end style used to hold wooden forms in place when your garage foundation was poured in 1955. These steel ties ran through the wall from one side of the formwork to the other, clamping the two sides together and preventing them from bulging under the pressure of the wet concrete. Once the concrete cured and the forms were removed, the outer hardware was taken off, but the looped ends of the ties were sometimes left in place. This style of tie was common in mid-20th century residential construction because it was inexpensive, quick to install, and strong enough for foundation walls. In the last video, I asked you to guess what this strange wooden object that looks like a hammer might be used for. Everyone had great guesses, and many of you got it right. This item is a salt and pepper shaker, usually used for grilling. Thank you to everyone who participated and shared your guesses. A special shout out to Just Here for being the first to correctly identify it. That's the 6th time they've been the first to get it right. All right, it's time for another mystery item. Take a look at this strange object hanging on a kitchen cupboard. What do you think it is? Leave your guesses in the comments and I'll reveal the answer in the next video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Your support motivates me to create more videos. See you next time.